Happy Tuesday, friends, and happy Thanksgiving week. This is one of our favorite holidays of the year. We love to eat and we love to cook together, and it's just a great time. And it's all without the pressure of the presents and all of that jazz. So, happy Thanksgiving week. Today, we're going to talk about what I feel is the key to really being successful with gardening here in Arizona, because if you're not from Arizona, most of us aren't, or if you've ever just not had a garden in Arizona, or maybe you know of other people that garden other places, our idea of gardening gets really confusing because for instance, I follow a lot of people. Like one of my favorite people lives in Wisconsin. So people in other parts of the United States are putting their gardens to bed in the last month. Some in October. I know she got a big frost at the end of, like, the middle of October. So most everybody else is putting their gardens to bed, and when they're starting their stuff in the spring, we're just about to be at the end of our season. So all of those dynamics become really confusing when we first go into gardening, when we're in the middle of gardening, and it really stresses us out, and it could be the thing that takes us away from being successful or even wanting to continue with gardening. So now that we're at this time where we can sit and relax and think about next year, I really want to spend some time chatting with you about shifting your perspective and your mindset with how we garden here in Arizona, because this is the key. Because once you let go of how and when people everywhere else garden, and you get yourself in line with what I'm about to share with you, then everything starts to flow a little bit better. So what I propose is, again, shifting your perspective on how we look at what our gardening seasons are. Like I said, right now, so let's start with the summer. Let's start with July and August. So by mid-July and August and a bit of September, it's so hot and it's so challenging in the garden that a lot of us feel really defeated. And this is where a lot of us give up. So I'm going to kind of start from the end and go backwards explaining my seasons, but I want to start with saying that we need to shift, and this is something that I did this year. We need to shift into a mindset of looking at late July, August, and that first little bit of September as our winter, our time to kind of put our garden to bed and to give ourselves a break. Because I know after 3 or 4 years of doing this that regardless of the shade cloth, unless you have a very, very seasoned setup with microclimates that are really in line with the way the sun works in your yard, then those 2.5, 3 months are just going to be a challenge. No matter what you do, you can water perfectly, but that very, very hot, intense sun is just a challenge. So that's the first place I want to start, is that right now we look at that as summer. But that's it. When we start thinking about our gardening seasons, I'd like us to start thinking about that time as our winter, and start looking at fall and winter here in Arizona, meaning September, because September 15th planned to be the very best time for me to start my seeds. And I started all of my seeds outside. I didn't do anything inside, and I don't really think I'm going to anymore because I've got real good with managing my seedlings outside. So again, if we go back to mid-September to October, November, and then December, thinking about those months as, instead of a traditional winter, think about that being coming right after winter, being our spring here, our springtime of prep and preparation, because that's what everybody else in the world is doing in true spring. So prepping our seeds in September for our fall and winter gardens, and beginning to look at December and January is the time that we get our seedlings going, so that we recognize that our summer is going to be those windows between March and the 1st of June, maybe just a little bit of July, depending on how fast we're running into hot temperatures. So in order for us to have the best experience with our gardens, I think this is the solution, is shifting our thinking to making, again, this time of year as we go into December. I'm going to talk more in December about planning for your garden in the spring and the things that you need to do. I'm going to talk about that when we talk about what you can plant, and then later in the month we're going to get a little bit more detailed about microclimates. But I think, again, I want to kind of review that, shifting our perspective to thinking about our seasons in a different way that align with our work and rest in the garden, because that's really how you have to look at it, because there's just, again, not much that we can do about those really intense months. So that's kind of the time that we put things to bed. It's a staying alive time. If there's things that you can get through this summer, or things that are just going to do well in that hot time, like okras or Rosella hibiscus, or some of the more tenacious beans, some of the monsoon crops, those are going to do fine. But thinking about tomatoes, like the tomato freak right here, I've learned to understand that by the end of June, my tomatoes are going to come to their end. So if I want my tomatoes to be successful and I get to eat a bunch of tomatoes, my tomatoes need to be started way back in January, way back in December, so that that plant has long enough to go through its full vegetative state and move into a flowering state where it's going to start producing those for me well before it gets hot, because we all know that when it gets to 90 degrees or above, our pollination rate severely drops. But if we're in a mindset of, well, I put my garden in May because that's the start of summer, then none of your plants have time to really have any success before that deep heat hits in. So July, into July, August, maybe the 1st of September, that's our winter rest period here in Arizona for gardening. Our spring prep time is going to be mid-September, fall, or November, October, November, kind of our fall. We're going to be focusing on getting all of our little fall and winter garden in. And then when we get into December, we're really going to start thinking about our summer being that late February, March, April, and May, that's it, because sometimes we have a really mild May and sometimes it can be really intense, but we know by mid-June that the game is over. And I think if we really start looking at it like that the gardening game for the most basic things, not the true heat hardy things like okra and those folks, those things are going to be done come mid-June. Now, some things you'll be able to baby along. If it's tomatoes that are already there and that just need to turn red, they're going to do fine. But I think, again, I know I've said this a million times, by shifting our mindset to thinking about our jobs and our roles and what we can expect from our garden at these specific points and times of the year, then our success is just right there. Because once you get your soil down, and once you get growing down and your watering schedule down, then it's really just about doing the right things at the right time. So I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that you're really ensconced in a thought process of gratitude this week. Trust me, like I said, as we go into December, you're going to continually hear me talking about planning and prep for our our summer because to me, we're just kind of into the good part of our spring, and December is going to be our major springtime prep along with January. And then, boom, we're going to start planting at the end of February, 1st of March for our summer. So, have the best day ever, and I look forward to showing you some cool things I'm doing in the garden to adapt because, again, I want to finish with that. I think that is the key. The second key to being successful in Arizona is being willing to adapt, and adapt we shall, friends. Have the best day ever.